Good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay, so I had asked that you come ready to present your proposals for your final projects today. So I'll start. I'm just going to go alphabetically by last name down my attendance sheet. Let me do this. Let me I'm going to set it so that you can, let me make sure I can set it so that you can share your screens. Okay. So let's start with Miri.
Hi. So I actually couldn't find exactly what I was looking for as an example, but I kind of wanted to show like what I would like to happen, and then I'm sure we can kind of take it from there.
Sure.
So basically, I do a lot of content writing,
Mhm.
and the issue that I have is that I'm actually not allowed to link to the stuff that I write because it's not supposed to be by me. It's supposed to be by somebody else.
Right. Okay.
But when I have a portfolio, I would like it to come up as like a PDF sort of thing. So it's not linked, but it's there so that like clients can read it.
Gotcha. So it's sort of like you have a almost like a sample pack or something that's just in a downloadable PDF instead of directly linking.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. That's easy enough to do.
So what I like is kind of what I would want to do is sort of something like this. And kind of have each image just be like a subsection.
Okay.
So kind of based on industry. And then when it opens up, like this just opens up like it's exactly what I wanted to do, but kind of there would be a tab that would just go to what's inside.
Sure. Okay. Oh, so that it would open. Okay, so you want to have like when you click on one of these links, it opens like a PDF viewer, basically. Yeah. Okay, cool. Hang on one second. Let me grab we can look into when we get to talking about JavaScript plugins, remind me to I'll make a note, but just also sort of remind me to talk about PDF viewer plugins, because browsers are pretty good at handling PDFs by default, but if you want it to be kind of seamlessly viewable, if you want kind of a seamless experience across browsers, that's like more kind of fluid with the experience of your site, then we might want to like go a little further than just default and have some custom behavior in there. So I should have a pen somewhere. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get a pen.
Sure.
Okay. So okay, and can you just can you pop the inspector open and just like put it in responsive mode so that we can see what happens when this or go to if you do inspect, yep, then up to the left of where it says elements, there's the little icon of like an iPad.
Yeah.
Click on that. Dimensions responsive. Yep. And then so right next to the link text that says Joan Didion, there's a little icon that you can grab on. There's a little bar you can grab onto to scroll it, to resize it horizontally. Yep. Okay. So yep, it does basically what you would expect it to do when you size it down. Okay. Yeah, something like this is 100% within your capability.
Okay.
Cool. Did you create a design mockup or anything?
No, I have a portfolio website that I already have.
Okay.
And I would love to just kind of put it in there as a page.
Okay. I do want to see some kind of design mockup document, especially if you're going to try and sort of like integrate an existing site into something new. So, okay. Do send me a link to your existing portfolio site. I think I have it somewhere from a couple semesters ago, but just do me a favor and send it again. Okay. And I would like to see even just like sort of some, you know, some kind of design for how you plan to sort of like put new stuff in with the old stuff, or what, or vice versa. Okay. Thank you. Sarah.
Yes, I can show, like, should I send it in the chat, or
you can actually, I set it so that everyone can screen share, so you can just share your screen with us.
Okay. This is like a website that I think is like kind of like my, I guess, like vibe, if you say.
Okay.
I think like this like animated butterfly that's just static is kind of something I would be interested in trying to do.
Okay.
I kind of like Miri, like all of the work that I have, like I can't really show it because I did marketing and it's not like you know, like
yep.
design work. So I can show my wireframes for now, but
okay.
I was thinking maybe I can like make a collage of all the things that I'm interested in.
Sure.
It's kind of like my homepage. And then for the about page, I was going to write like a brief bio and then a photo. But I wanted to do this thing with my menu bar where it can like change color if you hover over it.
Yep.
And then I'll put like a line underneath once you're on that page to signal.
That's super easy to do.
And then I was gonna do like a newsletter type thing. I wanted to, I guess, link my Substack that I want to start.
Okay.
I don't know if like you can necessarily link the Substack like as a page, or if I would just have to like copy and paste all of the articles that I put up. So maybe more like a blog.
Yeah. We can look into that. I would be surprised if there's not a way to at least
just have a show.
Yeah, like to have some kind of embed, you know, to embed so like even just like a list of most recent Substack articles, even, you know, and maybe like I something like that. I would be shocked if something like that doesn't exist. I'm not super familiar with Substack, but just from what I know about it, I feel like that's a reasonable thing to expect from them.
Got it. Okay, yeah. And then for my experience tab, I'm still debating if I want to have it link out to my resume or if I want to like embed the resume on the page.
I would say I think it'll look better to embed the resume, to like have the resume be part of the page. And then you could have sort of like at the bottom, you know, or like somewhere else on the page, you could have like a link to a downloadable PDF version or something like that.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah, that would be nice. And then I just want to like include my social links on the bottom.
Yep, that's a great spot to leverage. That's a great spot to leverage using icon fonts for all those social icons, because then you don't have to go find like an individual image for each one.
Okay. But yeah, I want to like kind of mimic this style.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you can send me that Illustrator file, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Or
Sounds good.
actually not the Illustrator file, if you can like save it as a PDF or something. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
Do I just send it to your email?
Yeah, just my my Pratt email is fine.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
So then Chloe.
Okay, let me share my screen. Let's see. So I have two websites that I liked. So this one's the first one.
Okay.
And I like the animation on this. And then when you click into it, like the slider and then the percentage goes up.
Okay.
Oh wait, what's this? Please click on the screen to start the audio. Okay, we don't need the audio experience. And then the second website that I like is this. Basically when you click on the icon, the face changes.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty cool.
That's okay, yeah. That is actually pretty
Hard?
no, actually pretty simple.
Oh, okay.
I think that well, there's an aspect of it. I suspect that that's being achieved using an SVG, which is not
Okay.
something that we're going to cover. You know,
Uh-huh.
a graphic that's just written in markup that you can manipulate directly. But
Right.
but we can but the way that it's the way that that behavior is being governed
Mhm.
is just through custom JavaScript behavior, adding and removing classes, and then sort of changing the way things look based on that. So
Okay.
so like to mimic this exactly the way it's been done here
Mhm.
is a little outside of what we're going to cover, but we'll be able to
Okay.
get you to something really similar.
Okay.
I would say the same thing of the other website as well. It's sort of like the things
This
like
one.
yeah, things like setting up you know, preload, like sort of, you know, when you click on a page, it shows that percentage counter and then it wipes to the
Right.
next page. That kind of stuff is a little more advanced than we're going to get, but we can
Yeah.
still get some pretty cool like animation effects and stuff going.
Okay. Yeah, I think the main goal is just basically to practice like the different animation options that's kind of within like the levels of what we're learning in this class.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't have to mimic the exact animation, but I think similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a library called animate.css that has a lot of CSS animations just kind of like ready made so that you plug it in
Oh
and
yeah,
all you
I
have to
see it.
do
Yeah.
is all you have to do is add and remove class names, and you can.
Okay.
And so the way that this starts to get to looking really advanced really quickly is when
Right.
you combine JavaScript and CSS. If you use JavaScript to dynamically add and remove class names from things, you can create some
Mhm.
pretty complex looking animations really easily, especially
Okay.
using a library like that. So it won't
Yeah.
be exactly the kind of thing we're seeing here, but we can definitely get some of that happening.
Okay.
Do you did you make any kind of mock-up?
Kind of, yeah. I didn't do
Okay.
one in Illustrator, but I kind of drew it out.
Yeah, that's cool.
So just as a reminder, so this is basically like a website for the existing app, I Am.
Mhm.
And it's basically like a website or an app that sends you daily intentions and affirmations reminders. So it's like supposed to be a very like feel good app. So I didn't want a lot of text on it to begin with. So the idea is basically to have like icons or like emojis
Yep.
that I would design. And when you hover over it, there'll be like different animations, whether it be like flip or like a bounce or like the ones that we just saw in the website examples.
Mm-hmm.
And on the, I was thinking of maybe adding like a really zen like music background,
Sure.
which you can toggle on and off on the right top corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the left, it would direct you to the Apple App Store to download the app.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and then you can. I added a scroll bar. Haven't really decided what the scroll bar would look like, but I don't know. Maybe somewhere along the lines of like having like a gradient rainbow scroll bar or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't done custom scroll bars, but I know that that is a doable thing, so we can look into that.
Okay. Sounds good. So that's my mock-up.
That looks great. Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I'll send it to you by email.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Henrika.
Let me share my screen. Can you all see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I found like a bunch of websites where like different elements, like for this one, I really like, okay, why is it not doing now? That when you hover, it gives you a little preview of the video. I don't know how complicated that is. And then for this one, I really like how everything is placed, that it's not like necessarily on a grid and
it's kind of asymmetrical and overlapping.
Yeah, and you have these kind of PNG elements that go like over the different projects and so on. And also I really like the colorful background and that it's a little bit animated when you're scrolling. Yeah, and this one was just like one within where the cursor changes, which I really like. And it also has like a little animated vignette. That is something I'm interested in. And then this one, again, like, I mean, I think you said once that like the animated cursor is a little bit too complicated. But in general, I just like how everything is kind of more fluid and moves. And again, the non-grid placement.
Okay.
So I created a design mockup. I kind of, on a colorful background and then my logo, which I also want to be animated, and then like different bars. So this would just be for the homepage, and that I have like my animation projects here, little animated vignettes, and then my illustrations at the bottom. And then I also want like when you click on it, that it opens up into a carousel and you can look at it larger. So yeah, that is it.
Okay, cool. We are going to specifically talk about implementing an image carousel. That's in an upcoming lesson. The animated background on rollover, that is not something I've made. I'm not sure how hard that is. I think there's probably an easy workaround. I was looking a little bit before class at the site that you sent and sort of inspecting it and trying to see where, how they were achieving that effect. And I couldn't quite tell, but I think that there is a way to do it. So I think that we can figure out a simple way to do it. As far as an animated cursor, I think that I'm gonna keep looking into that. An effect like the one that you showed on that motion design website,
like this one.
Yeah. Sort of if you move the mouse up a little bit to where it's the sort of the trail of black dots.
like this?
Yeah, so that is outside this, is definitely outside the scope of what we're going to cover or what we're going to be able to do here, because they're using like a graphics engine to do that.
Yeah, but with this one, it just looks like it's going through an animation, right? Once it is over the picture.
Yeah, I think that sort of like yeah, exactly. I think that this kind of an animation where it's not necessarily like tracking the motion of the mouse, but it's just sort of like, you know, frame by frame animation. I think that that's a thing we can get, that we'll be able to get to.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. My Ting.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's been great. Can I send you in the chat? Because I wasn't on my I'm not on my computer. I started Zoom meeting with my phone.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to send you my website right now.
Okay.
So I already have a website, and it's I made it in Cargo.
Okay.
Right. Can you see that?
Yeah, just a second. I'll share it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is your.
I use yeah, this is my website, and so what I want to do is, because I do illustration and animation, and I'm actually using like a mockup in Cargo that can show different size. So I only have 2 type of work, so I think this format kind of works for me right now.
Okay.
So what I wanted to add here is because I did a few changes to my website this week, and I'm adding this new section called Play. It's in the bottom.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I'm preparing for this class is that I kind of want this page, because I look up some website on neon cities, and I really like the aesthetic there, and I kind of want to make something that is relevant to what I wanted to make, because I kind of want to make a web page for like a simulation game.
Okay.
And can you click the snowman?
Which one is the snowman? Sorry, the
Yeah.
Oh, that
one,
guy.
yeah.
Okay.
So I found this example on Neon Cities, and I feel like it looks like a simulation game. So I kind of want this page to be like this, and also, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, sort of like the background is a the background is a is kind of a is like a scene or a setting, and then sort of there are things in front of it.
Yeah.
Oh, let me show you a thing actually. There's a game. So so this is a game that came out a couple of years ago. That's like, it's got a really long it's a if you actually play through it, it's kind of a long storyline, but it also has these sections that are kind of that are where the puzzle mechanic is that you have to so this is all built, you know, this is all built in HTML. And if I go to see how the room changes when the size changes, if I pop this out, like part of the mechanic of these spaces is that you have to resize them, and things kind of like come in and out of view as you resize the window. So all of this stuff is actually built. It's not, you know, the page you showed from NeoCities, this is a static image as the background, right? But you can actually you can make the background, yeah, exactly. If you build out the background using using HTML and CSS, you can actually kind of end up getting it. You can end up making it a little more interactive, and you could play with the perspective in fun ways. That's not so. I'm not going to require you to do that. I just kind of like, you know, this might be something fun to play with. It might add a level of, if you're going for something that's like a point and click game. You know, I figured I would just show you a reference piece of a point and click game. Okay, cool. So you want it. So the idea is you want this page to kind of like feel more like a game level than just a regular website.
I actually made something that is inspired by the Japanese style game. So if you like go back to my website, to this play page, there's also like a little cloud there. And I made something with After Effects, but I feel like it could be like I'm thinking about making like something that is a moving background with sound, and also there'll be like buttons.
Sorry, you were saying?
I was thinking that maybe there can the web page can be like a moving animation, and also with some buttons that can be clicked, and so we can go to the next page or nice thing. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
That'll be like. Yeah, also I kind of want to change the cursor on this page, so it match with the same. But I feel like it will be a large process to make this. So maybe I'll make like 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think it could be like a nice place to start with, because I have to like figure out the content, and I think that's going to take some time, but I think I prefer to show the result first.
Cool.
Yeah. So
yeah,
and that's my plan on this.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really good. I'm definitely interested. I definitely like the idea here. There was a student, I had a student the last semester that I taught this, that did as their final project, they did like a choose your own adventure game.
Oh, that's cool.
So I will I'll dig that up and I'll send that to you as a reference piece also, just so you can, it's aesthetically it's very different from what you're talking about, but just in terms of like interaction feel and play feel, I think you should you'd get a kick out of it. Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. I think that's going to be fun.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Gabriella?
Yeah. Let me just share screen.
Sure.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yeah. So so I picked for my final project, I want to do a fan site for this like series of graphic novels.
Cool.
It's 2 books. It's just 2 books, so it's pretty short, but
which graphic novel?
So it's Persepolis.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I couldn't really find I was looking for fan sites to base it off of, but I found most of them are kind of either outdated or I don't know, they didn't really fit the what I was going for.
Okay.
But I found like this site for Gorillaz, the band, and I think it kind of gives me what I wanted to do. Like it's basically a site just for people who don't know the band yet, and it goes through all their phases each at a time. It's very simple, like there's not much stylistic elements to it, but you can like click on the characters to see their backstories and stuff like that. So I think like that's something close to what I'm going for.
Okay.
For the comic. Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah.
Yeah. And okay. Yep. Fan page, but sort of without the, yeah, you're right. A lot of fan pages have that sort of very GeoCities aesthetic kind of going on. And so you're looking for something more modern than that. Almost like a portfolio site for someone else's work more.
Kind of like that. I think like I'll put what I did so far for the mockup. So I wanted to kind of just make it very simple, but I want to add more stylistic stuff to it. Maybe on like, like I want to show some like strips of the comic too.
Sure.
Things like that. And like a list of characters like the one in the fan site. But that one didn't have many, I don't know, like animations and stuff to do. I think I'll just do it on my own. Yeah. Then I wanted to just embed like, because there's a film, I think, so I was gonna put the trailer here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
It.
This looks great. Can you send me this PDF?
Oh yeah, I sent it.
Oh, you did? Okay, fantastic. Okay, cool. And then Daphne.
Okay. So this was I think the example that I sent you of a portfolio site that I did like. I actually like this a lot with the scroll. However, for each of my projects, I think I'm gonna have to have a separate page, just because I have like a lot of content for each page.
Sure.
So I did come up with a mock-up. I'm also running into like an issue where like I'm using screenshots and stuff from websites that I worked on, and it's like I don't want to pick a lot of colors or fonts that then like clash, like
Yeah,
because there's no like cohesive, it's inconsistent kind of across the different sites. So that's one thing I've been running into like design wise, like as a challenge, I guess. So I was going to try to use something basic, like the two sites that I saw used Courier for their font, which I thought was good. It was kind of, basic, might not flash. So that was the thing that I was running into. So I sort of started thinking about just having like 2 pages. I don't think I need like a resume because I think I can just add a link to LinkedIn for my background and stuff. But yeah, so I was going to have some like case studies and then just like link to a page for each one, and then just have like a bio page and try to keep it kind of simple. It is kind of boring. I mean, I think maybe on load, maybe I could have some like animation at the top, like something that changes at the top, or maybe like a lazy, I don't know if it's long enough for like a lazy load, but just something so it's not quite as boring, or like maybe add some drop shadows. I don't know.
Yeah. So we're not going to go all the way up to working with Ajax and implementing things like lazy loads. Okay. That'll be covered in programming too, in coding too. But we can definitely add, have stuff trigger on page load. That's a pretty easy, that's just another JavaScript event. And so we can do things like sort of have we can sort of trigger animations and then another thing we can do is set up events to listen for the end of an animation. You can set up JavaScript events to start and listen for, or to listen for the start or the end of a CSS animation. So we can set up some effects, some kind of like on load effects pretty easily like that.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe this appears, or this, maybe it changes color or something, just something simple, like when it loads might be good. So yeah, that's where I am. I know I need to start thinking about color and stuff, but I guess I just want to see what might actually not clash with the photos that I have.
Sure.
And I think last time I asked, like a lot of times, well, actually, let me pull up the other one real quick. Do you know how to sort of get, if there's something that can be used to show like your work on a screen like this.
Oh, you asked about this last week. You asked about
like
this
this
last
is an
week.
actual photograph. Like this is like
yeah, I know that there is a plugin that shows you like a simulated device.
yeah,
Whether it's like a computer screen or like a phone or whatever.
mobile, yeah.
I am drawing a blank, but I'll make sure to look it up for next week.
Okay, yeah, because it'd be nice to have like the mobile view, like on, you know, on a screen.
Yeah.
Because I don't have like, you know, like some of these, it looks like they got a photographer or they took a picture of it, you know.
Right.
But
yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll look up that I'll dig around for it and I'll email you tomorrow and I'll see or like by the end of the week and I'll see what I can find.
well, yeah, I feel like I should know. Like I've searched and I feel like I should be able to find something that does that, but for whatever reason I can't.
I've seen it. I've seen it in the wild, and and people have brought it into class before, and I'm just blanking on what it's called. But I know that such a thing definitely does exist.
Cool.
Okay. Well, send me that wireframe too if you haven't already.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks everybody. This seems like a this is a nice this is a good batch of projects. I think this is going to be a fun one. So with that said, let's jump into this week's lecture. This week we are going to start working on JavaScript. And specifically, we're going to be using a language called jQuery, or a library called jQuery, which takes a lot of, I kind of like to frame it as your training wheels for JavaScript. It's a library that sort of takes a lot of common functions and makes them and simplifies them so that they're easier to master or easier to wrap your head around. But it's also something that doesn't really that you don't see deployed out in the professional world as much anymore. It's kind of as far as like professional use, it's a little outdated, but I still think it's really valuable as a teaching tool. So JavaScript is a programming language that can be embedded or linked into HTML documents. And it allows us to make web pages interactive through what we call event-based scripting. So what does that mean? What does event-based scripting mean? In short, this means that what we're writing is a set of instructions, and we're listening for a certain event to happen, whether that is a mouse click or a key press or the browser window scrolling or the page loading or anything like that. And then we run, and then that set of instructions that we wrote runs when that event occurs. So it's a set of instructions on what to do on a mouse click, what to do on a key press, what to do on a scroll, etc. jQuery is a popular JavaScript library. As I mentioned, it takes a lot of a lot of common boilerplate JavaScript tasks and makes them much quicker and easier to write. If you want to pursue JavaScript programming more seriously, you should learn to work without it. And that's something we do in coding too, is that we ditch the training wheels and we just go into vanilla JavaScript and we learn how to do all of this from scratch. But considering that, that this is like, 3 or 4 weeks out of a 12-week class that I have to teach it, I figure we'll use the training wheels for the first time around. You find it at jQuery.com. So in order to use it, you can you just include the core library. So you add to the head of your document, you add this script, which you can copy and paste off of jQuery's site, off of jQuery off of their website. If you just search jQuery CDN and go to, I usually do the minified one, and then it's just code.jquery.com. I click jQuery core 3.x minified, and then I copy this script and I paste it into the head of the document. You want to make sure that this is included before any scripts, before any JavaScript of your own, or it won't work right. Now, as we sort of dive into the most basic ways to work with JavaScript, there are two. These are there are two methods: the alert and the console log method, that that constitute the two most simple ways that we can output information out of JavaScript. The alert will open an alert box and halt execution of any further code until that alert box is dismissed. The console log will print to the JavaScript console in the developer tools and will not halt the execution of code. It will continue. It will just keep right on going. We can also do what's called injecting into HTML. So this is a little more advanced, but it's very common. We take say text or something from JavaScript. And we insert it into, and we use JavaScript to just insert it into an HTML element on the page somewhere. And this is how we build like dynamic user interfaces and things like that. That's basically what a lazy load is doing, is that it's adding, the part where it requests more information from the server is beyond what we're going to cover here, but the part where it sticks that information into the document is very much something that we're going to go over. So before we go on to talking about selectors, let me just do I have JavaScript in? Yeah, okay. So notice that there are several ways here to write JavaScript. I have a script.js file, which is embedded through the script tag with using the source attribute. And that is this file right here. But notice also that here down at the bottom of the page, I can just write JavaScript directly, use it inside the script tag. In the same way, you know how I was able to remember how we can write CSS by using, you know, this. We can, you know, and so we write whatever in here. In the same way that we can write CSS directly inside HTML using the style tag, we can write JavaScript just directly inside the script tag. So here, at the end of the body, I've put a script tag that just has an alert and a console log. So notice that the alert popped open here. I'm going to reload this so that you can sort of watch the order that these things happen in. We get the hello world, the alert. Once I dismiss that, we get the second command, the console log I am alive. If I flip those around, let me reload it again just so you can see. But we're going to get the console log first and then the alert. And notice that that the console log didn't stop the code from proceeding, but this has stopped everything from proceeding. And then once I dismiss it, we get all the content of our page. So, I mentioned that in order to, for example, use JavaScript to insert content into an element, we need to select it. We also, for instance, if we want to say bind custom click functionality to something, we need to select it. And the selectors that we use in JavaScript are identical to the selectors we use in CSS. So you just write them a little differently. So okay, right. So in CSS, we use, I think that, okay. All right. In CSS, we use .class and we use hash ID, and we use those exact same selectors to attach JavaScript functionality. So if we had a link with an ID of, or an anchor with an ID of click me, we would select it in CSS by writing hash click me and then brackets and then applying our style rules. In jQuery, we use the $, then we do open parentheses, quotation marks, and then we put our selector here, hash click me. We close the parentheses, and this part here, that's our selection. That's where we select it. We've selected that element, and then here, after .click, what we're saying is we're binding a click event, and then inside this function is where we're going to write the code that will execute. What I've written out down here is how we would write this exact same selection, how we would write this exact same thing out using pure vanilla JavaScript. And you can see, which would be document.query selector hash click me .add event listener click function. So you can see just this is wordier, right? This is more verbose. But this is a little simpler to work with. From some students have told me in the past that even though this is more verbose, it's a little easier to understand what each of the constituent parts of this phrase are doing. So I'll make sure to add. I'll make sure to sort of like pull a vanilla JavaScript example alongside most everything that we're doing here. But I don't expect you guys to write vanilla JavaScript. I just expect to see jQuery. Now, I've talked about functions and I've mentioned methods. So we're going to come back to later and talk about methods in a little bit more detail. But basically, a function is a set of instructions that perform a particular task. We can give this set of instructions a name, and we can call it on demand. And a method is a function that's associated with a particular object. Basically, we're going to come back and clarify that a little bit in a couple of weeks when we talk about JavaScript data objects. But more or less, you can think of for right now, you can basically think of methods as pre-made functions, pre-made functions that already exist, that you don't have to write from scratch, that are there for you to be part of your toolkit. So for instance, in this part here, we have the selection, then we have this part here, the .click is a method. It's predefined by jQuery. And then this function, we write ourselves. So what are some kind of jQuery methods that you can expect to see a lot of? .click is very handy for binding click events to things. It's very easy to show and hide elements using the .show and .hide methods, and the .toggle method will swap back and forth between those. so that you can set something so that as you click, something opens, something or something shows, something hides, something shows, something hides. And but because we have this .toggle method, we can just we don't have to write two separate functions and toggle and manually set up a toggling between them. There's also, I've talked a lot about using JavaScript to dynamically add and remove classes from HTML elements. And jQuery makes that extremely easy. We have a .add class method, we have a .remove class method, and we have a .toggle class method. Okay, and that's the entirety of my slideshow. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna comment these out so that that alert doesn't stop my page load. So let's start with let's start with this. Let's just start with let's start with a very basic click binding. So I have a link here. You know, with the ID of click me. And by default, this link is a link to Wikipedia. So it takes me to an external website. Using JavaScript, I can override that behavior. So what I can do is I'll just write this all out so that I select by its ID, I invoke the click method, and then I start writing a function. In this function, there's something I want to do here. I could just do this, but this isn't going to get this isn't going to allow me to override, to stop it from doing what it does by default. In order to do that, we said that JavaScript is event-based programming, and we can actually pass the event into the function here. This is what and use that to then invoke the event.prevent default method. This stops the default behavior of the event from happening. Then we can print. We can take the event and log it to the console and see what kind of data is exposed when we click on something. So now so the event.prevent default stopped it from navigating away to Wikipedia, and the console log event, this is all of the information that was associated with that particular mouse click. So it tells you what event we clicked. It tells you where on the screen it is. It tells you what type of event. It tells you whole bunch of things, whole bunch of stuff. Its location on the screen, so on and so forth. Now, real quick, let me show you one other thing that's handy to do here. If you go into this sources tab, and you go and then you click on your JavaScript file. You can drop. What this is doing is dropping a breakpoint So now I can step through the code notice how it's paused on this step. And I can inspect each stage. I can even, if I hit the escape key, I can pull the console up underneath any open window. In Chrome, as I can do that. And now we're going to see that console log event come through. So, okay. So I have this other link here, and I want it to do the same thing. This should be the, yep. So I could just do this. I could just rewrite the same set of instructions and bind it to this, to the net, to another, bind it to the other. So now I get, oh yeah, this one's paused in the debugger. Let's take that pause out. So now, and you can see the event target is different on each one. But this is not, so you know, this is not a great way to accomplish this because we've we've got the same set of instructions and we've just copied and pasted it and we're repeating it. So we're taking up space that we don't want to use, or that we could use more efficiently. So this is where using named functions comes into play. So the functions that we have here that we invoke like this by just sort of like stating out function and then writing the instructions without giving them a name, we refer to these as anonymous functions, and they need to be reevaluated and re-executed every time. But if we put into these, if we put them into a named function, we can just write it out once and reuse it and apply it to however many other elements we want. So instead of, let me do this. Let me get this guy out here. So instead of writing out the same set of instructions twice, we can just write it once, name it, and then invoke it. So I'm going to create a function called prevent default and log. I'm still going to pass in the event. And then I'll just write this out again. Instead of writing an anonymous function there, I just write the name of the function that I want to invoke. So now, you'll notice that if I go here and drop a breakpoint, it pauses when I click the first link, and it pauses when I click the second link. So now I can reuse the same, I can take the same chunk of code, the same function, and I can reuse it around different parts of the site or around different parts of my page. So let's go to, oh, right. It's also worth noting I have a div here. Notice that in markup, notice that in my markup, it's just the word hello. I can take this out completely. Let me. So I've removed a line of JavaScript, and now notice that the text is gone. Here, I was able to use the .html method. I'm just selecting that by its ID of insert, and then .html, and I can just put in, I can just add HTML as lines of text. And so now we have an H2 that I stuck in there on page load. So let's do this. Let's get rid of the that, and we'll come back and we'll rewrite this. So so now up here, I have a function called toggle blue. I'm using it to, and in this function, all I'm doing is selecting the div of class demo module and adding in and toggling the class of blue. Oh, right, I have to. So let's make it so that when I click on any of these links, so now I just, so I can invoke that function on its own just by calling its name and with a set of parentheses behind it. And now, notice up here that the class name blue is adding and removing. We can also we can go a little further here. I have class names for blue, green, and purple. So we can cycle through those. Let's do kind of a and the way that we're going to do this, since we're dealing with more than one class here, we're going to need to set up a little bit of conditional logic. We're going to need to check to see if an element has a certain class. If it does, we'll do one thing. If not, we'll proceed and do another check. So this is what's called an if-else statement, and it's pretty common in any. These are ubiquitous across all programming languages. We write if, and then a set of parentheses. And in these parentheses, we put a condition that'll evaluate to true or false. In this case, we're going to use we're going to check to see if demo module has the class of blue. So this is a yes or no question, right? Does it have the class blue? Yes or no? So then we open another set of brackets and we write instructions for what happens in that case. I'm going to remove the blue and remove the class of blue and add the class of green. So that's in the case that the demo module has the class blue. or else if on the other hand, if we in the case that the demo module has the green class on it, we want to remove that and add the purple class. Okay. And then same thing again. If it has the purple class, we want to remove it and add the blue class. But if you notice, by default, we don't have any of those classes bound. By default, it's just let's get that out of there. By default, there's none of those background colors are activated. So we'll do one more. And we're just going to use the word else here because we don't have a specific case we're checking for. So it's if this is true, do this. If not, and this is true, do this. Or else if this is true, do this. And or else in all other cases, we add the blue class. So now let's take, let's remove that and let's go here instead. So now let's step through this actually. Let's go here and watch what happens. So if it has the class blue, we'll execute these lines of code. It doesn't, so we go to the next check. Does it have the class green? No, it doesn't, so we go to the next check. Does it have the class purple? No, so we go to the all else case and we add the class blue. Now, if we do this again, in this case, we do have the class blue, so we step in to, oh, by the way, this button proceeds to the next function call, this sort of like arrow that's bending over the dot. And this one will, this button of the play button will just start, resume executing the script as normal without these pauses. But in this case, we want to see, so this condition passed and we execute these lines of code. So we remove the class blue, add the class green, and we're done. Yeah.
So you're just like pausing it and playing it to show us, right? Like if you weren't pausing it, that would just happen automatically once you click me.
Exactly. Which I'll show you here. Yeah. See how it's just happening automatically?
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. But I also wanted to show you how to use the breakpoints because they're an extremely handy debugging tool. Like if you're, especially once you start getting into writing more complex JavaScript and you're looking for you know, you've run into a bug, this is a this is an invaluable tool for getting it for getting debugging working. Okay, but so anyways, yep. So we add the class green here. That condition fails. This one passes. So we remove green, add purple, and we're done. And so on and so forth. And there we go. That's how we set it. And we can click any of these, or we can click either of these, and it'll continue cycling in that order of blue, green, purple. So now if we wanted to, oh yeah, right, okay. So sorry, I don't want to cover variables until later. So say that I have two, say that I have two different divs. I have two of them here that are hidden. You notice that my CSS class of hidden is set to display none. One thing I can do, let me just do this. Let's look back at that event data. And notice notice the property that says target. That's the selector of the div that we looked at, or of the div that we or the link that we clicked. But notice that this, I have an href attribute here that like an href attribute of first div on the first link, and an href of second div on the second link, and those match the IDs of these two hidden divs. So one thing I can do notice that by just jumping straight to, instead of selecting the whole event, specifically just the event.target, now I can see that, like, I can get to the attributes of this element. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it as a jQuery element. And then that allows me to and let's just console log all of that. And now let's see what comes out. Aha. So now I just have now I have just a selector, right? So I can use that. This is going to be a little confusing, but so what all of this spat out was just the, oh, I deleted the console log. What all of that spat out was just the selector, right? So if I plug that in here, now I can toggle back and forth between two different divs. And what's happening here you see how the class name hidden is just swapping back and forth between one div and the other. Now, this is a pretty this is really confusing to read. This is and it's kind of a mess. So this is a great place to use variables. And we're going to come back to these in more detail in the coming weeks, or in next week, actually. But for now, let's just say, basically, when we declare a variable, what we're doing is we're setting up a name. We have some value or something that we want to store, that we want to be able to store and recall. So we create a name that we can use to reference that value. So so instead of having to write out all of this every time we want to get to that, I can store it. Oh, I can't show it from there, right? Because it's only in the scope of this function. But I can designate a name, store this value, associate it with that name, and then and in the same way that we name functions, we can just name values and recall them. And so this becomes a lot easier to work with than trying to kind of just reference everything directly. But don't worry about that too terribly much for now. We're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that next week. Okay, so believe it or not, that is actually the end of today's today's lecture and today's code demo. For next week, what I would like you to do, if you didn't send me a design mock-up for your website, for your project, please send that to me next week. But also for next week, I would like you to go to my go to the glitch team page and grab the base template and just add an element to this page and add a click event to it. Make something happen on click. It can be adding and removing classes. It can be anything you want. But just make it so that when you click on something on the page, something happens. Tell you what, let's make it easy. Either change text color or background color. How's that?
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay. All right, we will come back next week and we will get more in depth with this stuff. And thanks for your work, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good
Next.
night.
Next week, could you show us maybe examples of like JavaScript in action on like a site that's like, I don't know.
I'll pull something up. Yeah, something a little more real world. It's honestly, it's just so ubiquitous and so embedded that it's like it's literally under the hood of every single website you look at. If there's anything that's like beyond especially with JavaScript has gotten advanced enough that basically it's like there are JavaScript frameworks running pretty much every dynamic website on the web at this point. So it's pretty like it'll get a little more, it'll make a little more sense in like it'll be a little more real world applicable in a couple weeks. Just like bear with me, but it's going to feel kind of rote mechanic for this week and next week. But I will try to like bring something in.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Have a good one.